let's move on here because I was at the tapings on Tuesday night. They came back to the Manhattan Center for another set of 3 tapings, actually 6 technically, over the course of 3 nights. I was at the first night of tapings with Brian Blade and Webmaster Mike, so if you don't want to know anything that happens on upcoming episodes of Impact, if you want to be spoiler-free, you're going to have to skip ahead by several minutes because this is going to be chock full of spoilers here. First, let me just say this. I always love meeting fans of this podcast. Whenever I go to a big show like a WrestleMania or anything, it blows my mind in a building with 70,000 people. People will pick me out of the crowd and will find me and come over to me. I still remember, I think his name was David. He may be listening now. Fan from Ireland. He was at WrestleMania in Miami a few years ago, and the show ended, and you have 75,000 people now filtering out of the stadium, and he kind of tapped me on the shoulder and found me, and I was just blown away by that. So I always love meeting fans of the show, and I met a whole bunch of you guys on Tuesday night. You found me, and we kind of chatted, and we're just kind of shooting the shit for a little bit. So that was always fun. It was very cool to meet you guys. The other funny thing to the tapings on Tuesday, we had second row seats. So the first time we were there, we had front row. That's what you saw on Thursday. This time, our seats were literally right behind where we were in June, only we're in the second row instead of the first row. And poor Webmaster Mike had to get the seat right behind the guy with the giant mohawk. So in about 2 weeks, when you're watching Impact and you see a guy with a giant mohawk in the front row, we're right behind him. Or I should say Webmaster Mike is directly behind him. Open with Gail Kim in a 4-way, which is probably what they were teasing on Impact that aired this week. The 4-way with Gail Kim, Taryn Terrell, Velvet Sky, and Angelina Love for the Knockouts Championship. Gail retained her title. Highlight of the match was Taryn Terrell doing a dive off the top rope onto the floor, onto all the heels. No idea when this was going to actually air. I'm guessing it's going to be in 2 weeks, but again, the way they mix and match stuff, who the hell knows? This match aired right before the Hardcore Justice taping. So they may shove this match into a random taping. It wasn't part of Hardcore Justice. Hardcore Justice began after this. Opened with Bram and Abyss. Stairway to Janice match. Now, if you saw their match, Monsters Ball, on Thursday night, it was brutal, right? Blood, thumbtacks, barbed wire boards. This was worse. If you thought that match was rough, wait until you see this one. The first spot of the match. The first spot was Bram being backdropped onto a ladder in the ring, and right off the bat, he had a nasty-looking gash on his back that just opened up. I mean, if you remember that time that Hardcore Holly had his back split wide open on an episode of ECW on Sci-Fi, this wasn't quite as bad, but it was similar. It was similar. And that was the first spot of the match, so now he's got to wrestle the rest of this Hardcore match with his back sliced open. So he goes on the outside, he bladed, so now Bram is bleeding from the head. He got thrown into the barbed wire board back first and got sliced open. And then, as if that wasn't enough, with his back ripped open and bleeding, towards the end of the match now, he got slammed down onto 1,000 thumbtacks. And there were tacks sticking in the open cut, in the open wound on his back. Abyss got shoved off a ladder onto a barbed wire board at another point. Bram got Janice. Janice was hanging above the ring. He climbed up and grabbed it, but before he could use it, Abyss caught him with a black hole slam on the thumbtacks. Just brutal, brutal stuff. Eventually, Abyss got Janice. Bram kicked him in the nuts. He used Janice on Abyss and, shot right to the gut, got the pin. So basically, the same finish as the match you saw on Thursday. I'm not a fan of this kind of stuff, to this degree, at least. There's just no need to take it that far. Like I said earlier, for what? For TNA? You're going to rip your back open and shove thumbtacks in there for TNA? I mean, come on. But if you're into that sort of thing, this match will be right up your alley. EC3, Rockstar Spud, Rhino in the ring for an interview. Lots of fuck you, Rhino chants. I have video of it up on my Instagram page, for those of you who didn't see it. EC3 blamed Rhino for his Aunt Dixie going through a table. Rhino told him to take all of his money and shove it up his ass. So big babyface turn for Rhino. A brawl broke out. EC3 laid out Rhino to set a matchup later on in the tapings between the two of them. Samoa Joe beat Low Key with the Muscle Buster. You guys are going to enjoy this. This was stiff as hell. as you would expect from these two guys. Real good stuff. Mr. Anderson beat Sam Shaw in an I Quit match. Sam Shaw tapped out to an armbar. Yes, an armbar. He tapped out. Gunner came down to break it all up since Anderson wouldn't let go of the hold. He and Anderson had a brief stare down. Anderson's a dick. I don't know. It reads to me like Sam Shaw now is the babyface and Anderson is the dickish heel. I guess I don't know if they've actually explained that, but that seems to be the role now. Hardy Boys interview. They were out there, Matt and Jeff. Jeff says they could do better. They haven't exactly had a lot of luck yet since they've reunited in TNA. So they invited Team 3D to come out. Bully says they're on a mission to become the TNA Tag Team Champions. What a way to go into the Hall of Fame this October in Japan as the Tag Team Champions. So they want to win the belts. They call out the Wolves. Davey Richards says that if they want a shot at the belts, they can have it anytime, anywhere. So they made a match for the main event, Hardys versus Dudleys versus Wolves. It's going to be the first match of a series where the first team to win 2 matches wins the series and the tag team titles. So we got the first match at the end of the show. 6 sides of steel to determine the number 1 contender for Lashley's TNA title. We had Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, Eric Young, James Storm, Magnus, and Gunner. Roode and EY climbed out at the same time on opposite sides. They did the old Hogan-Orndorff finish from Saturday night's main event, only Eric Young clearly hit the floor first. It was just obvious that he did. That kind of screwed things up. They still played it up like they hit simultaneously. The referees argued, and that's how that ended. Then came a last knockout standing match between Gail Kim and Angelina Love. This opened the second taping. These two had a hell of a match. You really need to see it when it airs. It is worth going out of your way to see. They brawled all over ringside. They used cookie sheets on each other, ring steps. There was a spot on the outside where Gail went to use a chair on Angelina by the ramp. Angelina drilled her, just absolutely killed her with a kick to the face. Finish came with Gail giving Angelina a Samoan drop off the top rope down onto a steel chair that was laying on the mat. Love could not respond to the 10 count, and so Gail retained her title. Just great stuff. Major props to these two women. There were lots of better than divas chants during the match, and for one night anyway, they were. Tajiri made his TNA debut. He beat Robbie E with the Green Mist and the Buzzsaw kick. I think he beat him with the kick. Tajiri pretty much looks the same as you would remember him, just a little bit older in the face. His hair is a little more unkempt. It's been almost a decade since we've seen him on, WWE television. I think his last appearance, I'm guessing, would have been the first ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view, which would have been 2005. So it's been a while. But he looked good. Kurt Angle did a promo up in the balcony. Said that due to the photo finish in the cage match, we do not have a number 1 contender, but he's going to sit down with Bobby Roode and Eric Young to hash it out. Whatever the hell that means. MVP, Kenny King, and Lashley came to the ring. MVP had a line here where he told the fans to shut up before he has the NYPD start dishing out chokeholds to everybody. That got a reaction, not surprisingly. For those who don't live here and don't know, there was video recently of a police officer applying a chokehold to an unarmed suspect, and you could hear the guy on video saying, "He can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe," and he ended up passing out, and he died. And they ruled his death a homicide. It's been a big, big story around here. So, was it tasteless? Sure. Was it out of line? Not at all. He's a heel. It's not like he made a rape joke, And I know death is worse than rape, but there are just some lines you don't cross. I didn't feel like this did. There were a few people who were upset, but for the most part, it was one of those reactions like, "Oh, like he went there," But he was being a heel. He called Lashley the King of New York City. That brought out Tommy Dreamer, as if the amount of ECW nostalgia on these shows hasn't been nauseating enough. Once the Dixie angle played out, that should have been the end of Tommy Dreamer, but nope, he was back again on the show. This turned into a street fight between Dreamer and Lashley. Lashley just destroyed him. Crotched him right on the guardrail in front of us. Words cannot describe Lashley in person. He is just straight up beast. Not the beast incarnate, but still nobody you would want to meet in a dark alley. Lashley beat him with the spear. Crowd loved Dreamer. I mean, they ate it up. There were a lot of fans who were into the ECW nostalgia. I was not. To each their own. I still feel like there's way too much of it on these shows. You did it the first few tapings, okay, when you're in New York City, right? You want to have some of the old ECW guys. That's fine. I get that. But here we are, another batch of tapings, and they just keep trotting the ECW guys out there. It's like, it worked here, but I don't ever have to see Tommy Dreamer on Impact ever again. Low Key, Tigre Uno, and Crazy Steve beat Homicide, Manic, and DJ Zima when Low Key pinned Manic with the Key Crusher. Really fun match. Rhino beat EC3 by DQ after EC3 nailed him with a chair. He was nailing Rhino hard with those chair shots, and they were hitting him right on the elbow. So, like, Rhino was laying on his side. EC3 kept striking him with the chair, but the chair kept hitting him in the elbow. It was brutal. Next was a special segment with Kurt Angle introducing us to the newest TNA signing, Sergeant Chris Melendez, who got a fair amount of publicity for TNA in New York this week. He is an amputee. He lost his left leg in Iraq. He is the recipient of the Purple Heart. The Dudleys, Anderson were out there as well. Anderson is a former military man himself, which I did not know. And he talked about his favorite charity, the Wounded Warrior Project. He found out about this guy who wanted to be a wrestler, and he recommended that he hook up with Team 3D in their school out of Florida. So he referred Bully to this guy, and Bully told him, look, I'll train you for free, but you got to be serious about this. He took him up on it, and here we are. And they handed out little American flags to the crowd before the segment, everybody except Brian Blade. He was very upset he did not get a flag. So to make him feel better, me and Webmaster Mike waved our little flags in his face, like a modern-day version of the Fabulous Rougeaus when they went heel and they started doing their disingenuous "We Love the USA" gimmick. I still think their theme music is fantastic, by the way, if you've never heard it. Especially the part about Barry Manilow. That always cracks me up. Just Google it. Go on YouTube and listen to it. Main event was Hardys, Dudleys, and Wolves. Match 1 of their series. I heard they had great matches all 3 nights. Not shocked about that at all, given who was involved. Second match was a tables match. I think that was the night after our taping, and the third match was a ladder match. We got the straight match, and it was great. Dudley's won with the 3D on Eddie Edwards. So there's going to be a lot of good wrestling action coming up on Impact over the next several weeks, and if you're into the Hardys and the Dudleys, then you're going to really enjoy this. And I like the fact that they're working with the Wolves. I assume in the end the Wolves go over. The 2 veteran popular teams put over the younger guys, kind of the big top team of their generation. I dig that. I dig that story. So that was the tapings. Another fun night of wrestling. Say what you want to about TNA and what their future may or may not hold. They taped a bunch of TV. This TV is going to carry them through the end of their Spike TV contract, so this TV will carry them through the end of September. And we're just waiting for an announcement from either side. Are they going to be renewed or are they not going to be renewed? Because if they're not going to be renewed, they're going to have to find a new home, or else it's going to be bad times for TNA. But if you have the chance to go to one of their shows, you'll always have fun. Even other house shows of theirs I've been to, no matter how big or small the crowd may be, it affords them the opportunity to do a lot of fan interaction, to have autograph signings. You can go into the ring and pose for photos with guys for $20. I mean, they do a lot of really good stuff like that WWE just can't do. You just can't do that in a building with 5,000 people. It's a lot different if you have a building with 500 people. So they were doing some of that after the show. They brought out tables for an autograph signing. I didn't stick around, but a fun time. And supposedly they've already booked dates, or at least put in a reservation for some dates to go back to the Manhattan Center again for another set of 3 tapings in September. I don't think it's officially been booked yet because they're probably just waiting to see how things play out with Spike. I mean, why are you going to go back to the Manhattan Center in a month and tape 6 more hours of TV if you don't have a TV deal? So I think they put a hold on the building. If they re-sign, then they'll probably be back in New York City again. And I guess the weird thing about that is, if they do come back and they tape TV, they have Bound for Glory coming up in Japan. I think October 12th is the date. That's their next big pay-per-view. That's like their WrestleMania, okay? So I'm just wondering, if they've already taped television through the end of September, and the plan, let's say, is to go back to the Manhattan Center in September for more tapings that would then take them through October, possibly even into November, that poses a very risky situation, I would think, because you're potentially going to have to spoil the outcome of the pay-per-view for the people who go to your tapings. So I don't really know how that's going to work. But I just heard, there were reports that they've put a hold on the building for September. I would have to assume it's for TV and not just for a house show. I guess we'll just wait and see.